The Galactic Convention on Rights and Dignities had been in session for 3 standard cycles, debating the finer points of interstellar trade regulations, when the human delegation requested an emergency audience. Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth stood at the podium, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edges. She was 43 years old, a career diplomat known for her patience and measured responses. She had negotiated 17 treaties, mediated disputes between hostile species, and maintained her composure through countless provocations. Today, her eyes were red from crying. The Council recognizes Ambassador Vasquez, High Arbiter Kelnoth announced, his tone carrying the mild irritation of interrupted proceedings. What emergency warrants disrupting? They took our children, Vasquez said, her voice cracking. The Zithrak Confederacy took our children. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, Kelnoth began. Vasquez activated the holographic display. Images filled the chamber. A human colony ship, the New Dawn, drifting dead in space. Its hull breached in dozens of places. And inside, security footage showed something that made even the most callous species in the chamber shift uncomfortably. Children. Human children ranging from infants to teenagers being herded by Zithrak soldiers. The children were crying, screaming for parents who lay dead in the corridors. Some of the smaller ones tried to run, only to be grabbed with clawed appendages and dragged away. The New Dawn was a colony vessel carrying 3,000 humans to the Kepler 442 system, Vasquez explained, her voice mechanical now, like she was reading from a script to keep herself from breaking down completely. 2,000 adults, 1,000 children. 3 days ago, it was intercepted by a Zithrak privateer fleet in neutral space. The footage continued. Zithrak soldiers systematically executing the adults, not quickly, not mercifully. They made the children watch. The adults were killed, Vasquez said. All 2,000, the children were taken. We received this message yesterday. A Zithrak commander appeared in the hologram, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been a smile. Humans of Earth, we have acquired your spawn. They will be sold at market to species who value young servants. Their value is considerable. Your young are soft, trainable, and live long enough to provide decades of service. We thank you for this profitable cargo. The message ended. Vasquez stood silently, tears streaming down her face, waiting. Ambassador Zithrex of the Zithrak Confederacy stood, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. This was the action of independent privateers, not the Confederacy government. We cannot be held responsible for. Where are they? Vasquez's scream echoed through the chamber, raw and primal. Every species present felt something ancient stir in their genetic memory, the sound of a mother whose young were threatened, universal, terrifying. Zithrex's inner eyelids flickered nervously. As I said, this was not a government operation. Even if we wanted to help, we have no jurisdiction over. You have 72 hours, Vasquez said, her voice now completely flat, emotionless, dead. 72 hours to return every single child, alive, unharmed, or Earth responds. Is that a threat? Zithrex hissed, trying to regain his composure. No, Vasquez replied, it's a timer. High Arbiter Kelnoth attempted to restore order. Ambassador Vasquez, I understand your distress, but threatening a member species of the Galactic Convention. I'm not threatening anyone, Vasquez said. I'm warning you, all of you, you've been dealing with diplomatic humanity, civilized humanity. Humanity that follows your rules, respects your conventions, plays by your standards. That humanity is asking politely one final time for the return of our children. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every ambassador present. If they're not returned in 72 hours, you'll meet the other humanity. The one we've been very, very careful to keep locked away for the past 200 years of interstellar contact. And I promise you, you don't want to meet that humanity. This is absurd, Zithrex scoffed. Humanity is barely a Type 1.5 civilization. You have no fleet capable of threatening the Confederacy. This is an empty. Tell me, Ambassador, Vasquez interrupted. How much do you know about Earth's history before we reached the stars? I know you're a young species with a regrettably violent past. Our violent past, Vasquez said softly, includes 10,000 years of warfare. We have fought over resources, territory, ideology, religion, and race. We have developed 6,000 distinct languages and used every single one of them to describe new and creative ways to kill each other. We split the atom and immediately used it to incinerate cities. We created diseases that could wipe out millions and then created worse diseases to counter them. She pulled up historical images, warfare across human history, ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern conflicts, the nuclear age. We fought with rocks and sticks, then bronze and iron, then gunpowder and artillery, then aircraft and missiles, then nuclear weapons that could end our civilization. And through all of it, across every war, every conflict, every battle in our 10,000 years of slaughtering each other, there was one absolute, universal, sacred law. The chamber was silent. You don't touch the children, Vasquez said. Soldiers kill soldiers, warriors fight warriors, but the children are off limits. Every culture, every nation, every tribe across our entire violent history agreed. You don't harm the young. Those who violated that rule weren't treated as enemies. They were treated as monsters. And monsters don't get trials or negotiations or mercy. This is very moving, Zithrex said dismissively, but ancient history doesn't change the current balance of power. The chamber's displays suddenly went dark. Every screen, every hologram, every communications system shut down simultaneously. Then they flickered back to life, showing a single image. A human warship, not like the frigate-class vessels Earth had been using for peaceful exploration. This was something else entirely. 20 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that made several military advisors in the chamber audibly gasp. And behind it, fleet readouts showed 300 more just like it. What is this? High Arbiter Kelnoth demanded. Where did these ships come from? A new voice answered, male, cold, with an accent that marked him as military. This is Admiral James Hawthorne of the Earth Defense Force speaking from the EDS Retribution. Ambassador Vasquez has been conducting diplomacy. I'm here to discuss the alternative. Admiral Hawthorne appeared on the displays. He was in his 60s, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen too much combat. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was all business, crew members working with deadly efficiency. For 200 years, Hawthorne continued, humanity has been playing nice with the Galactic Convention. We agreed to limit our military to defensive operations. We agreed to share our technology. We agreed to follow your rules, your laws, your standards. We did this because we remembered what we were before we reached the stars. We remembered the wars that almost destroyed us. And we didn't want to be that species anymore. But we also remembered the most important lesson from our history. Hope for peace, but prepare for war. So while our diplomats were negotiating treaties, our engineers were building ships. While our ambassadors were making friends, our military was training. While we were smiling and following your rules, we were preparing for the day someone made us stop being civilized. The display shifted, showing more ships, orbital weapons platforms, ground-based installations, a military infrastructure that dwarfed what Earth had officially reported. "This is illegal," Counselor Vexthren shouted. "Earth signed the military limitation accords." "We lied," Hawthorne said flatly. "We've been lying for 2 centuries. Every ship we said was a cargo hauler, armed warship, every mining station, weapons platform, every peaceful colony, military outpost. We built an invasion fleet and disguised it as civilization." "Why?" High Arbiter Kelnoth asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because we're not stupid," Hawthorne replied. "We studied your galactic history, 17 major wars in the last millennium, 43 species driven to extinction by accidental genocides, species after species entering your convention with hope and trust, only to be conquered, enslaved, or eradicated when they proved inconvenient. We weren't going to be another cautionary tale. So we built the biggest, nastiest, most devastating military force we could manage and hid it behind a smile and treaties we never intended to honor if they threatened our survival." Zithrex found his voice, though it trembled. Earth has declared itself an outlaw state. The convention will do nothing," Hawthorne interrupted. "Because in approximately 68 hours, if our children are not returned, the Zithrak Confederacy will cease to exist. Not occupied. Not conquered, erased. Every ship, every station, every settlement, gone." "You're bluffing," Zithrex hissed, but his scales had gone pale. "We don't bluff about children," Hawthorne said. "Let me explain what's going to happen. In 68 hours, if even one human child is unaccounted for, 300 human warships will enter Zithrak space. We won't target military installations. We won't engage your fleet. We'll go directly for your civilian centers." The chamber erupted in outrage, but Hawthorne continued, his voice cutting through the noise. "We'll drop biological weapons that make your plague from the Deathcar War look like a mild flu. We'll unleash nanite swarms that consume everything organic. We'll deploy orbital bombardment that cracks planets. We'll poison your atmosphere, irradiate your worlds, and salt the Earth so nothing grows for 10,000 years. This is genocide," High Arbiter Kelnoth roared. "Yes," Hawthorne agreed calmly. "It is. That's what happens when you touch our children. We become the monsters we've spent 200 years trying not to be. We become the species that built weapons capable of ending our own world and decided those weapons weren't quite devastating enough." He leaned forward, his expression hard as granite. "You want to know what humanity is capable of? We once had a saying, mutually assured destruction. The idea that we'd built enough nuclear weapons to end our civilization 10 times over, and we'd use them all rather than let our enemies win. We sat on that edge for decades, fingers on the trigger, ready to destroy everything rather than surrender. That was us fighting each other, over politics and ideology. Now imagine that same species, that same willingness to embrace mutually assured destruction, focused on someone who hurt our young. What do you think we'll do to you?" Ambassador Vasquez spoke again, her voice still flat, still dead. "I've been authorized to tell you what happens after the Zithrak Confederacy is eliminated. Earth will withdraw from the Galactic Convention. We'll establish a sphere of influence extending 50 light years from our territory. Any species that enters that sphere without permission will be destroyed. No warnings, no negotiations, just immediate, total annihilation. Then we'll begin expanding, slowly, carefully. Taking systems, establishing colonies, building more ships. Within a century, we'll be the dominant military power in this sector. Within 2 centuries, we'll control a third of the galaxy. And we'll do it using every brutal, savage, unconscionable tactic we developed during our 10,000 years of warfare. You'll call us monsters, Hawthorne added. And you'll be right, but you made us this way. You created this monster by touching our children. Counselor Silthera, representing one of the prey species that understood survival instincts, spoke urgently. High Arbiter, I move that we immediately authorize the Zithrak Confederacy to take any and all actions necessary to locate and return the human juveniles. Furthermore, I recommend the convention provide assistance. Seconded, multiple voices called out simultaneously. Zithrex was sweating now, his scales losing their luster. The Confederacy government was not involved in this action. The privateers operate independently. I don't care, Hawthorne said. You have 68 hours. Find them, return them, or every Zithrak in the galaxy learns what it means to make humanity stop being civilized. High Arbiter Kelnoth looked ancient, tired, defeated. Ambassador Zithrex, I strongly recommend your government mobilize every available resource to locate these privateers and recover the human young. The convention will provide support. And if we can't find them in time? Zithrex asked desperately. Then pray, Admiral Hawthorne replied. Pray that your gods are more merciful than humanity, because we're not going to be. The transmission ended, but the human warship remained visible on every display, a promise and a threat. 62 hours later, the Zithrak Confederacy found the privateers. The slavers had already begun selling the children at various markets across 3 systems. The Confederacy military hit every location simultaneously with overwhelming force. 17 privateers were killed resisting capture. 43 more were taken alive. And most importantly, 972 human children were recovered. 28 children were dead, killed during the initial attack or dying later from mistreatment. When Ambassador Vasquez received the report, she closed her eyes and stood silently for a long moment. Then she opened a communication channel to Admiral Hawthorne. 28 dead, she said quietly. Understood, Hawthorne replied. Orders. Vasquez looked at the images of the recovered children, traumatized, terrified, but alive. She thought about the 28 who would never go home. She thought about the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. She thought about monsters and civilization and the line between them. The privateers who are still alive, she said finally. Request extradition to Earth. They'll be tried under human law. And the Confederacy, reparations, massive ones. Money won't bring back the dead, but it will help care for the survivors. The Confederacy will also surrender any and all intelligence on slave markets operating in this sector. We're going to dismantle every single one of them. And the fleet, Hawthorne asked. Do we stand down? Vasquez was quiet for a moment. No. The galaxy has seen that humanity can be monsters. Let's make sure they remember it. Keep the fleet active. Keep the weapons hot. Let every species out there understand that we were willing to burn down civilization to protect our children. Let them understand that we still are. Understood, Ambassador. For what it's worth, I'm glad you found another way. So am I, Admiral. So am I. 3 months later, the 972 recovered children returned to Earth. Counselors, therapists, and medical staff were waiting. The process of healing would take years, maybe lifetimes. Some scars don't fade, but they were home. The 43 captured privateers were tried on Earth. The trials lasted 6 weeks. All were convicted. All received the same sentence, life imprisonment in facilities where they would never see daylight, never hear their native languages, never experience anything familiar or comfortable. Not death. That would have been too quick, too merciful. Humanity wanted them to live long lives, thinking every day about the children they'd harmed, thinking about the monster they'd awakened, thinking about how badly they'd miscalculated. The Galactic Convention passed new laws. Trafficking in sentient juveniles became an offense punishable by summary execution. Species could be expelled from the convention for failing to prevent it. Enforcement was brutal and immediate. Nobody wanted to risk awakening humanity's monster again. And in the decades that followed, humanity maintained its fleet, built more ships, expanded its territory, not through conquest but through the simple understanding that everyone now shared. You could negotiate with civilized humanity. You could trade with diplomatic humanity. You could even argue with peaceful humanity. But you never ever touched humanity's young, because behind the diplomats and ambassadors and peaceful explorers, the monster was always there, patient, waiting, hoping it would never be needed again, but ready, always ready, to burn down the galaxy if someone forgot the lesson. The aliens had touched humanity's young. Earth's monster had returned, and the galaxy would never forget.